the top there. So what you're saying is that the more you push this way, the club will naturally shallow.
Well, I like doing pause drills with students because I feel like it really gets them. Like if you can hit the ball from a pause, you can hit the ball from anywhere, right?
Like Hovland, a unique example where he has a little bit of a stronger grip, doesn't twist as much, but then has that aggressive move, like you're saying, that clockwise rotation.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through his swing a little bit?
Sure, everybody knows he's not the best bunker player, like statistically.
Yes.
And it's because of that.
Right. Is close. Understand that the golf swing is 90% hands and arms. It used to be, like back in the 20s and 30s with Harry Vardon and Henry Cotton and all these guys, they were saying that it was 90% hands and arms. Where did that get lost? Like, why? Why did we lose that? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand to handle to club relationships. Episode 16, last nice day of fall here in Michigan before winter comes upon us. We got our studio ready though, so we're ready for Michigan weather. Studio, we've been putting a lot of work into that. That's why, it's been madness the last week, just getting everything around for that. But it's exciting because this is cool, like doing this podcast and everything, but when we're at the studio, it's just we're going to be able to crank out so much more content.
Right.
So
more informative too. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, so basically if we have like an episode where we're talking about things in the chair with the small club, then we have our studio where we can kind of show it in like normal kind of golf posture and just to kind of make everything a little bit more, just kind of like better, like visual representations basically. So, it's exciting. So, well, I think by Monday we should be like shooting content. Basically, that's the goal, right? So, So thanks for all the support we got on the last episode. Really loved all the stuff we talked about with the lead thumb placement on the club. I love how we talked about a lot with the trail wrist, Brooks Koepka. That was a really good piece of content that we put out. Just talking about how he gets that trail palm just really glued against that lead thumb. And today we're just going to keep diving deeper into it and just give you a better understanding of that hand-to-handle to club relationship, you know? So we got our small club here, and we're just going to do some demonstrations today. We're just going to get right into it. And we really just want to start talking about more things that are going to be kind of included into the claw code, which is coming soon. And really, we talked a lot about, like last episode, we talked about like getting the club onto the 45, right? Or like the 45 is the swing plane. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch that. But really, I just want to talk a little bit more today on just like how do we steer our car? Like, let's be a little bit more precise on like where we're pushing, how we're pushing, the effect that has on the club. Okay, I think that'll be kind of a good way to just give people an understanding of when we start doing the claw code content and all the stuff at the studio, like this is the language we're talking, right? You know, like when we say push pull, what does that mean? Like things like that. Like you said, a really good lesson with Jax. The Prodigy yesterday, and you had to talk about a lot of these things. So let's just jump right into it. Like maybe let's talk a little bit about your lesson with him yesterday, like how that went, and how that could actually help people on the other end of the screen based on what you talked about in that lesson with him.
Sure. So one of the big things, which is going to be the big thing about for today's podcast as well, is understanding like the idea of when we're pushing against the handle, the effects that it has. We had one comment, the guy was asking about why is rolling bad?
Oh, rolling the club open in the backswing. So, because that's like a bad thing, right?
Right. The terminology of what it actually is bad. But what that means though is, we'll just get right into that first, and then we'll dive into the lesson part of it. Rolling the club just means that you're just literally twisting the handle. So the club just wraps around you, right? Right. So when that happens, the problem is that the club doesn't move vertically at all. And the effect it has on your lead arm where it pulls it more out away from your body. So it'll cause your shoulders to get too flat. And then you get the club really around you. And then from there, trying to hit down on the ball
you
and
gotta come back
everything is going to be really hard. Yeah. I mean, typically that's going to be the natural effect. Right. But one thing that I work on with my student Jax a lot is in the short game. So we're going to break it down to like quarter swings and less, and then we're going to break it into the full swing. Okay, cool. So one thing we do talk about is twisting the handle. So twisting the handle is technically the rolling action of the golf club, but rolling again is just more about if you want to think of it, how it's classified again, it's just rolling it around you. But when we talk about the short game, we talk about getting his claws. He has a strong grip. So you get his grip like this. And when he goes back, he has to push down a little bit on the handle. When you push down on the handle, think of it as like a teeter-totter action. The teeter-totter's in the middle of between like the handle and the golf club.
Okay.
Right? And when you push down, naturally the club head's going to come up a little bit. So that supports the twist. And the reason that's important is that, again, without any push down, just twisting, the club's going to get too far
the
around.
The teeter-totter like falls off of its like axis or whatever.
And we're trying to create, like from our last podcast about talking about the lever action, right? When we hit even like a really small chip and we're only trying to take the club face back, like we'll say, 6 inches, right? So like from here to there, we want the toe to open up just slightly of the heel.
With all grips?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're just basically trying to keep the pushing down out and away pressure. There's no pulling up, of course, right? And then from there, you just keep pushing back down and you try to thump the trailing edge of the heel here.
Because there's a little baby gear effect.
Yeah.
Right, little baby gear effect.
Well, you have to get the heel to toe relationship of the club face at least halfway from the heel to the toe to actually like bottom out on the ground and scrape for the ball to be able to ride up the grooves of the club face.
Got it. Okay.
And if you don't do that, then there's no way you're going to get proper spin, control, contacts, and be all over the place, right? So that's the one thing we worked on. And the funny thing was too is that one thing he was trying to do is with a flop shot, we'll say from like 20 yards away. He was trying to basically create more of a bigger swing, like a half back swing, and then try to drop the club on it and then like maintain the bounce. And he could do it, but it was just not consistent. So I taught him how you can take basically like a pitch or chip shot setup where your feet are, maybe 6 inches apart or at most maybe shoulder width, and then play the ball back, have the face open up your toe alignment, and then take your little chipping swing and thump the trailing edge. And he created more spin on his shots. They were lower trajectory, but more backspin actually on those shots than when he was trying to hit high and loft it way up. Because you're getting more of a gear effect of how the grooves are getting, in a sense, squished against the back of the ball.
Got it.
Like you're actually able to grab the ball better in a short swing with more acceleration in the proper direction.
So that's why we like when the toe pivots back a little bit, because it just gives you that ability to like...
If you keep it square going back like this, that's okay. And with a weak grip, that's definitely recommended.
But then
coming through, you have to drive, basically have to create a little external rotation in the trail arm and hand, and same with the, lead hand. You're going to get into a little bit of like internal rotation.
Right.
And then you're able to then push, and that will support keeping the heel leading the toe.
But
the idea is that because again, Jax has a stronger grip, we will allow the toe to go back just a little bit, and then you're able to push down. And it was amazing. Like the contact was really good every single time. And he was able to, again, hit any shot you can imagine. But by creating, if you can ask people, if you don't have to hit it high to create backspin, and you can just get it over that, get to the land spot you need to, and then have it check up from there properly, which one would you rather have? Like low to mid trajectory or a really high trajectory, which demands more of a swing, more,
a little lower.
Things,
yeah.
Arrows, it's like, that's really
the margin for error is just so much smaller.
If you can make a chip or pitch shot move and then hit every shot around the green from 50 yards and in, there you go.
Right.
Bunkers are a little different. But,
too many people try to make too big of a swing and try to be, the higher you go with loft, the more precise you have to be, because, technically, when people, they're making those big swings, like you're saying with jacks, is that there's so much more like energy being transferred in the ball that if your club face angle is not perfect, there goes the ball.
The outcome's going to, have more of a dramatic effect.
The energy that you're using to like create that height is just like, if that club face is off by 2 degrees, that ball's going to go 15 feet past the hole.
Right.
Opposed to just these small swings like you're saying. It's just small.
And what I would classify it as is controllable tautness for the short game, because I was telling him no like hinging, no really breaking much of the wrist. Like when he already has the grip with the strong grip, handle forward, so you're already preset with an angle.
With like the palm ahead of the fingers.
Yeah, so if you just basically are pushing down against the handle a little bit as you twist it open, you're naturally creating like that lever. And then from there you just push back down and then you hold it.
So what you're saying is that there doesn't have to be any conscious like levering or like hinging.
There's no conscious pulling action up or radial, like conscious radial.
So it's basically just pushing down. It's almost like a lever, but again, if you're pushing this way, the club's gonna go up.
The twisting effect controls the index fingers in a sense. Like the pushing is with the palms, but to control the top edges of the club face and the index fingers, the twist is what basically allows them to do what they need to do. That way, they're not, they don't have to pull up. They don't have to naturally like on or down either.
Right.
They just basically twist with it, and then the club head. If you're preset left, 70-80%. That's what we worked on also, was putting more of Jack's weight on his left side, because then all the angles and natural forces, like when you go back, are naturally going to lever the club back. You're not going to have any restriction in the ground. Now the club's in a perfect spot. If you push back down now, you have a proper downward, angle of attack, so you can bottom out, at the ball or slightly in front of it for your shorter shots, and that's it. And like I said, his contact was just perfect every single time.
From there, and then from those small swings, you just kind of build on that, and then you start levering it up a little bit more.
Sure.
So then you start introducing a little bit of like the radial, right, where you start kind of pulling the club back up at you. So when we talk about like basically the entire golf swing is just that push-pull sensation, right? Where your palms are pushing in a certain direction and your fingers are working a certain direction relative to that push pressure, right? So what you're saying with these small shots is that it's just pushing the palms away, but you're not really super conscious of where your fingers are going and how much they're going up or back. It's just more pushing with the palms. But as you get into the bigger swings, those fingers got to start kind of pulling back at you more to get the club levered back at you more, right?
Yeah. Think of it though more so like when you think about with the quarter swing or less, right? There's something everything's doing.
Right.
It has to, right? But you don't need to be like really pushing down on the handle in a short swing.
Because that's just like too much of a hammer.
It's a progressive, increase with everything as it goes back to where you get to your takeaway in a certain position where, if you look at with Jack's, we're trying to basically push and twist a little bit to the takeaway. And then from there, we're trying to make sure that he really aggressively pulls up, like with his, index finger of leading trail hand and adding a continuous twist. So one thing he was doing too yesterday was when he was trying to push pull, he wasn't adding enough twist. So he would get to the takeaway, toe was just maybe a little bit down, like matching spine, fine. But then from there, when he was radialing, he was getting too like flat with his lead wrist, so the face was getting really shut. And so if he wasn't able to basically go out enough with like sticking his finish, he was hitting things maybe a little bit heavy with the divots, even though the direction of the ball was actually going right where it should. So then we just added a little bit of twist with that same exact move. And then from there coming in, the line was able to, be supported because the heel was basically pointing like in a sense more forward at the target, but the bottom of the club face, like the trailing edge, was pointing more at the sky,
which is what you want with a strong grip,
because the gear effect would snap back. And so his like shots that might go a little bit low left or a little bit heavy with contact became perfect divots, and it was a nice high push draw. Started right at the target properly, came right back to the target perfectly.
Got it.
And the thing is, I guess what we're trying to get at too would like relate in his move is that everybody that's trying to understand like the strong grip idea, we have to realize that the twist is important. Like if you just want to learn how to hook the ball right away, you don't have to twist much, right? Like you go back and with a strong grip, the toe can basically be
matching
like
the
face
angle.
Can match the spine angle, even be a little bit down from there. And then as you go back, take half swings, then just try to learn how to keep the heel leading and stick your finish to right field in a sense. Right,
then you're going to really get that dramatic gear effect.
Yeah, and you're going to be hitting snap hooks, then trying to hold it off. Then you can incrementally add the twist, but the twist, again, is a very tricky thing because like we talked about with the rolling action, right? If we start twisting too much and we forget to push with it, like the pushing has to start the move. Like the first 6 inches of the swing should just be really pushing and then just adding that little incremental twist from there.
And where do you feel like you're pushing? Like when you say like pushing,
you're pushing
do you feel
down,
like
out, and away against the handle.
Are you pushing like into the ground?
Imagine again the teeter-totter, right? There's like a teeter right here. So as I push down on the handle this way, the club head's going to come up a little bit.
Okay.
You don't have to push much. Right. And it naturally happens if you have your claws.
Got it.
If we have lobster claws and we try to push, you could still get the effectiveness of getting the club to maybe do some of these things, but it's not going to be as effective with like the actual action. Like
especially if you lengthen the swing more and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Because with a strong grip, you're most in your fingers for that grip type. So when you push down, I mean, you really feel it levering back. So So that's why, again, like you're also trying to, in the short game to a quarter swing, you're trying to elongate the push and the stretch.
Okay.
Right? It's not like you're just trying to like push a little bit and then twist up. It's like you're trying to just elongate it to where, imagine like your arc from where you start with your club head, like how it's going to resemble the plane. You want to be very elongated and low and just like gradually coming off the ground. Like if everything was neutral with your body and you weren't leaning left at all with no weight left, no forward shaft lean, the club would still just barely skim the ground as you would start back, and it would just, again, incrementally, gradually like go up, right? But if you lean left with the handle, all of a sudden you're like naturally steepening that angle right off the chute because of the angle of the body and everything in the club.
Because you're taking that T form between your shoulders and
the handle forward.
And the handle.
So it's like dynamic, or like statically, you're like allowing yourself to dynamically get into that proper angle of attack.
A term that we would use in golf instruction called angle of attack.
Right. So we do in our one podcast, we were talking about if you once you get all these presets right, it's like you're really like
presetting that angle of attack.
Exactly. Like your low point, your path, your face,
swing direction, everything.
If you just abide by the angles.
It's that arrow that we talked about in a couple episodes ago where we said where that, like if you had a laser beam on the sternum, where that arrow is pointing would determine like how the club is coming to the ball, like you said, angle of attack, but then also where your shoulders are pointing would determine the swing direction. So that's kind of what you're saying.
Right.
So, yeah, I like that.
So,
but yeah, the pushing though, that's a big key. And what you're saying there is that when you're taking the club back is what part of your hands are you actually like pushing with? Like
your knuckle pads. Like,
so that's where the claws come in, right?
With a weak grip, like we know it's more up here into your, palm, like right here on the seam. And then to the like the knuckle pad of your or your lead hand index finger.
Okay. So it's like there.
So it's like here, right? And so then you grip it, and then with the trail hand, you're gonna come on, and it's basically going to run just inside of the trail index finger pad, and then it's gonna go a little bit more up into the finger. So it's gonna be a little bit more like along the knuckle pads, not all the way up into the palm, but more here. DeChambeau does get it a little bit more up in that seam.
Yeah, we'll talk about him a little later.
That's where he maximizes his bow and everything, and does what he does with the locked arms and the ulnar. And
I got you.
Right. But then when we go to like a strong grip, the knuckle pads are really like more on top of the cylinder. So you're going to have more knuckle pad placement there. And then trail hand also, it's going to be more like straight along the knuckle pads. If you had like straight lines drawn from index knuckle pad to pinky pad, those are what we're trying to get on the club to where it's like, imagine that 3 o'clock, like 2:30, 3 o'clock position from vertical.
Yeah.
Trying to get like lead hand almost over there.
So you almost want to feel like your pinky of your lead hand is like straight on top of the club.
Right.
Right. Like if you had a laser beam.
Like if I was holding the club with my like trail palm facing the sky, lead palm facing the ground like this, and getting my knuckle pads like as close to an alignment like this as possible.
So if you had a laser beam going through like your pinky right now, it would be shooting down towards the ground.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
is this.
And if I took my trail index finger and pointed it like a shooter finger like this, it would be pointing like down at a 45. Like in front of me towards target.
God, which is what we talked about last week with like Brooks Koepka. He does that perfect.
Right. And it really just locks the elbows and triangle. And I mean, from there, if you just follow your move, it's so powerful.
Follow the seams.
When you get that gear effect, like with the knuckle pads and the pinches and everything on there with that strong grip, I mean, it's amazing just how far, like we talked about, how far could you hit it from 50 yards, right? With a sand wedge.
Yeah.
And I will say yesterday, Jackson, we did work on this, and with a sand wedge, 56 degree, he was taking what would be like a half swing and hitting about 95 yards every time, like half to half.
Crazy.
Just by getting, basically what would be is trying to get the club head just above the handle to like what felt like the takeaway, and then just sticking the finish to like right field in a sense, right? Or like if he was hitting a fade like down his toe line.
Yeah.
One interesting thing too that's important to understand that we worked on is I like doing pause drills with students because I feel like it really gets them, like if you can hit the ball from a pause, you can hit the ball from anywhere, right? Like it just really is a good drill to learn how to do. So we would get him to, push and twist and get to the top, and he would pause, basically what he felt like at a half backswing.
And you said like at this point, the club feels very light.
He could take his lead hand off the club and just balance it like in his pinch of his like right hand like this with his hook.
And if this was two this way, that would fall.
Or this way it'd be like fall. Right.
So it's just very, I got you.
And then with a good twist, and then from there, if he from a pause position, and we're talking like you go to this position, you pause for like 3 seconds, like 1, 2, 3, then you swing. And you try not to use a lot of body. You try to keep the feet relatively quiet and stuff. You're already preloading and stuff, right? And you're just trying to stick your finish. So if he didn't think about getting the butt end of the club to go out at the ball first, then he would get a little bit steep and then maybe hit a little bit left or a little chunky with like contact, right? But if he got the butt end to go first, then all of a sudden all this lag that he already had, like his lever basically that he had, here would lay down. So going from a little bit more vertical with the backswing to then shallow, which is right on the 45, right in the, as they call the slot, right? And then from there, he could just let the club's energy release. And if he kept his locked elbows and his palm pressure, he was hitting it. He actually, we started with a 4-iron doing this, and he was hitting it like 220 from a pause after a few of them. Like, and it was just like, just making sure he got the button going more back out. And that's the idea, is that when we lever up and back like this, we want to make sure that, again, the club's energy goes back out first, which for most golfers is scary, because when you're over the golf ball and you think of the distance between you and you got the club and then you've got the ball, and to think about swinging the butt end outside of the ball in a sense almost, or like at least at it.
To the right of the target.
It's hard for your brain to say, hey, we're going to actually hit the ball still. Because you're maybe not used to that like spring effect like we talk about.
Right.
Where the club head will be like catapulted back at the ball in the right direction. You'll actually make the best contact ever, and it's effortless. But most people try to navigate the club or the body thinking they have to do that because it's more in their mind assuring that they're going to not miss it.
They want to like keep it like close. Like, you want to keep it like close to your body. Like, I don't want to give up control. So that's what creates the shallowing action of the golf club. Correct? That's a very important thing.
So like when you think about like this, backswing where we're doing, let's say we'll take it back. You have your takeaway position. And if we have half of it, and then we have like a quarter of it and 3/4 of it, if we're taking just back a quarter, that little twist with the toe back, little push pressure, as we come back down, we have to basically feel that we're letting the handle of the club twist, like in a sense, in a clockwise direction, a few degrees, and then you just push back down and out. And you try to stick the finish with basically leaving the trailing edge of the golf club in the ground at the finish past the ball, to ensure that the ball rides up the grooves of the face.
Got it.
Because as long as you don't hit it towards the hosel too much or the toe too much, then you're going to assure that the ball is going to hit slightly inside the center of the face right here and then ride right up the grooves. So you're going to get the meaty part of the grooves, basically. Right. And that's what maximizes spin.
This is why we like the inner quadrant, because it allows you to really trust like driving down that sideways angle, right?
One thing I did with Jack yesterday too was, if you imagine the ball was here, I would tell him, imagine where you're going back, like where your takeaway is here. You're trying to hit that inner quadrant of the ball here, but you're trying to leave the heel of the club face, like the trailing edge, in the ground here after the ball.
Right.
So if you think about just prior to the ball and then after the ball where you're trying to be, like that's it.
I gotcha.
Then it ensures that this guy here is going to ride up the face.
It's like you can hold him
it's like
if you
he's coming in like this.
But
I mean, it's like when you think about the back of Dimples here, and as our club face is coming into him, like if he's trying to hit me, it's like if you're coming in outside in, you're hitting him, with the outside,
like
the leading edge, right? If we're thumping the trailing edge, then he gets basically where he can just slide right up over the face. And then the divot is in front of the ball, right? Handles forward. And then again, you can thump that trailing edge. Again, if there's anything with leading edge, it's fine. But the handle has to continue forward to scrape. So imagine like if you're thumping trailing edge, when he lofts up, he's like flying like this trajectory. If you're hitting leading edge, it's like he's coming in flatter at me, but he can still do the same kind of curvature.
Oh, okay.
That's just how like trajectory works. With like leaning it down like this and hitting him.
Got it.
Or coming in like this and hitting him.
Okay.
So it's like this or this.
Got it. So when you're hitting the fat shots, when you said he wasn't like driving the handle out enough, what was that creating an impact? Like, so why was he hitting those fat shots?
So if he took it back, let's just say the club head was like this and his backswing, like this is his like half backswing. As he was coming in, it would cause this action to Dimples. So then it's like,
so the handle's like back too much, basically.
No, it's not that the handle's back too much. It's just more like the face is coming in too shut. Relative to the handle. It's hard because I'm like,
right.
But if he took it to the top like this, and that's his half backswing again, if he came in and feeling like the heel was like leading, and then he's thumping the trailing edge, then all of a sudden Dimples is flying high and his side spin's minimized, And then that allowed him like to basically have a nice high push draw going way further. And then the paper thin divots too.
Got it. I'll take dimples from
him.
Oh,
okay, sorry.
Put him back in
his little,
to
be on the
his little home. Yeah, he's like, I want to be on camera.
Soon enough, bud.
Yeah, soon enough. Absolutely. But yeah, I like that a lot. I like when we talk more about the relationship of when people always think about like what shallows the golf club. Like everybody thinks that shallowing the golf club, and I did a piece of content about this on TikTok, is everybody thinks that you just this way, and then that makes the club fall, right? It's like that weight of the like club falling behind you. But really, the shallowing action is just really understanding the direction you're driving the handle and the effect that's going to have on the club, right? So that's what you're saying is that like go to the top of the backswing again.
So we'll do it from the standpoint.
Yeah. So if you go to the top there, so what you're saying is that the more you push this way, the club will naturally shallow.
Well, you're increasing your lever points. Like that's where we talked about like the flexing of the fingers back. It's like the more you push your palms back out, the fingers get flexed back more because the weight of the club head is actually lagging the fingers more. It's like a weight.
Oh, got it.
And then from there, then it's going to have a good snap back.
Got it.
You know, so basically that's why they talk about, like with Ben Hogan, he talked about having 3 right hands because he just wanted to hang on for as long as he possibly could to his lag, because the longer you stay like this, there's going to be that point where that pivot point where we talk about where the handle slows down and the club head comes around with the gear effect.
Got it.
And if the longer you hold this, the spring's just getting more taut.
Oh, got it.
And so it's like when it releases, it has more of a faster gear effect, which creates a like more distance with less energy.
Got it.
Right.
So that's where when you're doing those pause drills with jacks is that you get to the top, and then when you're coming down, you're almost feeling that kind of pump feeling where you're like pumping the handle down, and then those fingers are staying back, and it's just like pump, and then now from there you just basically tell him like how do you transfer the energy from there? Do you just tell him like straight arm, right arm straighten?
It's keep with him with the strong grip. Keep the cup in the lead wrist and push. So you basically keep lead hand, pinky pad, lead hand, thumb and index finger pinch.
The thumb.
Trail palm, go, stays of course pushed against lead thumb, and of course trail. I mean, we don't think about the pinch with the trail. He just has it because of his claws being so good. But that's important though.
That hook.
But basically, and the hook. And then, the trail arm going from bent to straight, and then basically just trying to stick the finish. Like he has 3 ways he can stick it. He can basically, like punch it and just try to keep it like low. And then and that's for like any of his punch shots, right? And then when he goes to like his full swing, he either has like his normal one where he'll try to point the club head at the target, and then the club head will come up just a little bit and he'll point it back down. And then he has his recoil, which is like the most aggressive one where he'll like, I'll actually try to stop the club at post impact. The club will re-kick back up, and then he'll like violently snap it back, keeping locked elbows, like basically back to where he was at the top. And he'll hit the ball the furthest when he does that.
So then when you're doing that recoil, that's really just giving you like the max deceleration of the body and the max acceleration of the club head away from it. Yeah.
And it actually stabilizes the body the best because the club actually works around you in a symmetrical circle the most.
Yeah.
Because of like thinking about pulling the club back naturally allows you to snap it more forward. It's a reverse effect of like how to create speed.
We'll definitely have like a drill, like a training aid someday where you can feel that recoil speed in the chair. Because if you can feel that, then you go down to your knees and then you hit it off your knees with the recoil speed. And it's like, wow. Then you really realize like, oh, I don't need to use my body as much as people think. Right. Yeah. So that's really, really important. So there's a couple of pros I want to talk about just to kind of, it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about with the pros. And one guy we really like and we like his swing a lot, and we've had a lot of people ask about him, is Victor Hovland. And Victor Hovland is a kind of unique example where he has a little bit of a stronger grip, doesn't twist as much, but then has that aggressive move, like you're saying, that clockwise rotation. Yeah. Can you walk me through his swing a little bit?
Sure.
Like what grip he uses?
He's like neutral strong, I'd say like 230 with the V's, or like
towards the trail shoulder.
Trail, ear, and shoulder in between.
Oh, okay.
And then when he takes the club back, he goes in with the handle first, which really gets it kind of hooded.
And so the face is like pointing down.
Yeah, so he basically takes it back like this because he bows the lead wrist too.
Oh.
So it's like this. And then when he goes up, he radials but keeps the bow. And then from the top, he really lays it down, But one thing I noticed with him that he does to allow himself to release this lag, because of course everything's in a sense too shut.
It's wound up big time.
He allows his head to stay in axis like tilt, but he rotates it all the way to the target, almost like not as much as like David Duvall technically, but like kind of like that. But he does, like DJ, because like that allows him to basically open up without having to move his body to clear and hold off all that excess like rotation effect, which is why he can hit the ball so far. And if you look at his finish, he keeps amazing locked elbows, which he has to, and you can see how he's really punching in a sense almost and like chasing it down the line.
So that's how he's holding off the gear effect.
Correct.
Because if he kept his head still and didn't rotate as much, because of how hooded he has that
or
face,
allowed his head to rotate open as much,
that face would just snap
he would have
over.
snap hook cities.
So that's why he likes it in the fade, probably, because it just allows him to just like really drive through it.
Yep.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. So when he gets up to the top, when you have a strong grip and you're that hooded,
bowed and hooded,
you gotta like really like, what are you trying to feel there? You're trying to feel just max clockwise rotation.
Yeah, I mean, he gets it up like this and then basically just lays it back down to here, and then from there again, his head is gonna like open, like rotate forward, and he's just gonna hold on. But then the gear effect, of course, is perfect here at post impact, like everybody,
because he's pushing so well, because he's got perfect claws and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. But he's using the body to like help drive everything.
His head, though, really, like his head is one of his uniqueness. You know, or his head rotation is one of his unique aspects of his swing that allows him to control the face with what he does between locked elbows, being athletic, good footwork too. Trail heel doesn't come off the ground hardly at all by impact, and he just drives the weight left like Brooks Koepka, like we were talking about stuff.
Too.
Right, of course. Like right. So that all, together really allows him to, be consistent. And I think that, like you said too, he hits the fade, but he can hit the draw too. He works the ball like, both ways, but he has a lot of distance for sure.
Right. So the key thing that we're talking about a lot, and this is just the whole theme of everything that we're saying, is that at impact, the heel has to lead the toe.
Right.
So that is the number one thing.
Not diss him at all, but with his bunker game, because everybody knows he's not the best bunker player, like statistically.
Yes.
And it's because of that. Like he gets the face too shut when he hinges. So it's going to resemble the same thing in this, his bunk shot. So when he hits a good one, I'm sure he really, gets that like clockwise rotation underneath and then thumps that trailing edge. But sometimes he might get a little bit steep and starting to hit more of the leading edge, and you hit him a little chunky sometimes. Or depending on the sand, you might, if it's a little wetter, might like skip and like, hit a little thin. So,
I gotcha.
I mean, that's...
because it's hard when you have that small of a move to get that much like clockwise
same with
rotation.
Chipping and stuff. Like your shoulder shots are going to be more of your detriment,
right? Which is why when we see all these instructors that are talking about like, keep the face like perfectly square going back, it's like, man, like now there's just so many things that you have to do perfect to get that relationship. Like
I feel like to start the momentum going just a little bit to give you a head start.
Yeah, right. Like wind the spring, and then it'll like unwind easier. Right. But if you like wind it this way, it's like, now you got to wind it the other way, so it unwinds in the proper direction.
Yeah, all that natural, gear effect back is then going to be very hard to control for shorter distances.
Like you look at Matthew Wolff to a bunker shot, it's like, wow.
It's very cool though.
It's cool. But
good hand-eye.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Like I'd never teach that with a student.
I've tried it myself. It does work, but it's hard though. Like it just takes practice. So
right, exactly. And another pro I want to talk about too, and it was cool actually watching him play really well again. Was Jason Day. He, used to be like the guy, and then dealt with some back issues, and he's made some changes recently with Como, and really improved his swing a lot, and just not being so violent and aggressive. But it's cool that I was reading an article about him, and he had a really bad problem with his lead thumb, and we talked about this in the last episode of how important that lead thumb is, where his lead thumb. And we'll pull up a little graphic of how he actually like puts it on the club properly, but he actually felt like he was going to lose his career because he wasn't able to really create that stability in that swing with his lead thumb. But can you talk about his swing a little bit, like how he actually uses his like hands and arms properly?
So, and I think to that statement, he has a neutral to strong grip. So when you think about the spring effect, when you're levering the club back like this, he would he always used to use his body a lot, right?
A lot.
Excessively. So
yeah.
there's going to be more like of a pullback and then more of a snap. And he probably just damaged some tendons or whatever, ligaments in his hand.
Because of how aggressive his lower body was.
Because of the snapping effect.
Oh,
right.
Got it.
So, but just watching his swing recently, I would say that he does a great job with he goes back, the toe is, or the face we'll say is matching his spine. It's just slightly toe down. And then from there, he does a great job in transition from the takeaway as he goes up with the twist, with keeping his lead wrist flat. And so he gets to the top. And I mean,
what do you mean by that?
So his lead wrist at the top is perfectly flat.
Because he's neutral with the grip?
Yes.
Yeah,
so, I mean, there's a slight cup in it. Okay. Right? But when we say flat, we mean that the angle of the club face is perfectly flat. And
matching
a 45-degree angle relative to the starting point.
So it's matching the lead wrist at the top is what you're saying, his club face.
Yeah. If you imagine if your club starts here and as it winds around you like this, from a side view perspective, the club is toe perfectly hanging down. Right? It's not too open, not too closed.
Got it.
Everything is perfect.
Okay, got it.
Right. And then from there, he just uses, I mean, his new leg action, everything's not bad. I mean, it's not near as bad as it
quieter.
used to be. He does kind of open up his shoulders a little bit from the top, and he kind of squats down, really gets his lower body with the whole squatting action like Sam Snead. And then from there, stays in tilt though so well, which allows him to hold that lag. And then he has a perfect locked elbow release. And then he, basically has the Adam Scott kind of finish, kind of lets the energies go around him more like Rory or,
Yeah, you look at his grip too, when he actually takes the grip, like we said, that lead thumb, he really starts with that, gets that lead thumb glued on the handle with that flap, that fingerprint, and that trail hand, he's just glued to that lead thumb knuckle.
Yeah, when you look at his follow through from down the line, I mean, you can see his index knuckle and everything just consistently so perfectly connected, like a Patrick Reed almost.
Yeah.
When he finishes the swing with Jason Day, there's no separation between his trail palm, his lead thumb, or the handle. The hands are perfectly maintained.
And that's key with all good players, right? Yeah. You have to keep your grip together, right?
I mean, if you start with a strong grip for say, and you try to bow, it's hard to keep your grip. You can do it, but then coming down is where you have more of the problem. It's going to make the lead arm want to collapse more because the face is going to naturally want to close too much. So when keeping the grip right, you have to basically get the perfect blend for which grip type that you choose, weak, neutral, or strong, and then understand what type of lead wrist position you're going to be at the takeaway and the top. Right.
So you just have to understand those matchups.
It's the 3 and the 3.
Yeah.
There's 3 grips, and there's 3 different types of lead wrists. The trail hand works appropriately with each. When you look at the setup, weak grip, lead V we talked about, 12 o'clock. Trail hand's going to be at 2. And then it goes from trail hand goes to 230 for a neutral. Lead hand's at 230, 2 to 232. And then you go to strong. Now we're going to 3 o'clock with trail. And then we're going to be around the same with the lead, 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Okay, got it.
But the trail hand is minimal, but lead hand is, again, it's just on the other side. So then that's going to dictate if we go like this, or if we go like this, or if we go like this.
Got it. And that's, again, like we're saying, we talk about this a lot, but it's extremely important. It's that when you're choosing that grip style, that little bit of twist is just to support when that club's coming into the ball, how much that's going to untwist. Because at the end of the day, we have to get the heel leading the toe. Yeah. And if we don't twist it enough,
it's how you control the path. It's how you control the path in the face.
Yeah, because when you hit a draw, you want the face to be open, which is, people hear that and they're like, wait, what? How is that? How can you hit a draw with the face open?
Every shot demands an open face relative to the path.
And then it's
unless
just
you want a more exaggerated move, more of a hook, more of a slice or whatever, then the matchups get a little bit different. But the face has to be basically open to the path that you swing on for the ball to be able to be projected in the air.
Open to the target. Open to the target, you mean?
Right. Bubba Watson goes from opposite ends of the spectrum the most when he plays golf. Because he goes from outside in to inside out relative to the golf ball.
Right.
Back and forth all day.
So he's hitting the outside of the golf ball and
top
the inside
outside quadrant, bottom inside, bottom outside. He's in all 4.
Right. But really not doing anything different with his in swing.
He does more it in setup.
His setup. Yeah.
It's alignment.
Right.
Ball position alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. How his hands are working relative to that is really not changing much at all.
No.
I gotcha. Yeah. Can we talk about the trail hand a little bit more? Because Jason Day, I'm so obsessed when I look at his swing, because you watch him like when he's putting it on the club and he's pushing so much. Like, can you talk about like where they're pushing, how they're pushing, and the importance of that when we talk about keeping the grip together? Like, it's just so important.
Well, like we said, I believe it was last podcast, trail palm pushes against clamps against lead thumb, no matter where the lead thumb is. So we're just gonna go strong.
And when you're pushing, are you feeling?
It's like this. It's like the feeling of finger extension. Like we said,
pulling
your
the
fingers
back.
are like back.
Yeah.
You plant the palm, then you get like the pinky pad of the trail index finger, and from there, once you get it like in a proper alignment like this, then you just curl the fingers and then bring the pinch down with the lead thumb, and then there you go.
Got it.
So it's clamped, and then when you go back,
where's that trail thumb placed? Is it on the other side of the grip?
It's on the inside part, which means that the trail thumb has to be turned more at target, opposed to like turning inward.
Oh, got it.
So it has to be pointing outward, because we want to feel like we're able to come into the ball like this, and all the forces with everything, like the thumb, if it wasn't pinched, needs to be bent back like this to support keeping the external for as long as possible.
So the thumb actually controls that arm a lot.
Well, it controls the top edge of the club face. It's the furthest point towards it, right?
I gotcha.
So yeah, when you think about like, you got those 4 points: pinky pad of lead hand, index pad and pinch of lead hand. Then you've got the pinky pad of trail hand, and then you have the pinch with the thumb and index finger of trail hand.
Got it.
And you connect all 4 points. And when you go back, you got the palms pushing together, and then you've got like the index fingers pushing together.
Got it.
And pulling together.
Got it.
Right.
So that's what allows you to, when you're doing all these moves, to not squeeze it so tight. Like everybody.
Right.
Like,
the finger extension is so important. Like you said, when you're asking about like how you work the hand.
Yeah.
It's like if I took the trail hand and took it back how it would go with the club attached to it, it'd be like this. Right. So when I do that, it's like this.
Oh, got it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's really what we're doing. We're elongating it with pushing down, twisting appropriately for the grip type.
Correct.
But that's it though.
I gotcha. So basically it just goes back to that visual we use all the time, is those fingers being pulled back. So once you get like the claw, that just really allows you to kind of feel those fingers being pulled back. Because if you got a lobster claw, your fingers can't really be pulled back because they're like over here. It's like the rubber band, it like needs a spot to attach to, right? So once you get that, it's like that kind of locks it into the rubber band, and then you can get that full back and then full through. But you got like a lobster claw and you're holding it like this. It's like the rubber bands are like, I can't attach up there.
They can't even get taut.
Yeah, they can't even like get up there. And then, good luck trying to control the golf club. So, because grip pressure is such an important thing. Like what we see in lessons. Holsters. Right. So we're really just trying to create holsters for where the club's sitting. So, it's just really just giving you more of an idea of what we got coming with our claw code videos. There's just like a different language that we're really just trying to get people to understand. And once we have our studio, all this is just going to really start clicking and making more sense because, people just need to really understand this relationship of this is how the hands and arms are actually working in the golf swing. This is how you're pushing. This is how you're twisting. Those are the big keys. So, studio will be ready very, very soon.
It'll be ready next week. And
next week we'll be shooting some content next week. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe, because we're gonna have a lot of content pushing through on this channel. And it'll be nice because it's hard when we keep talking about all this stuff in a chair. It's hard to really get that visual, and we're doing as good as possible as we can. But once we have the studio, now it's like, boom, now it's really I think it's going to click in a lot of people's minds. Like, oh, that's what they're talking about. And we'll give you drills to work on and things like that. So you can follow along, and we'll have our little tiny clubs and all that. So, we're just going to keep pushing out as much content as possible. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback, so we appreciate all the support. Stay on the lookout for all the content we got coming. And we again appreciate all the support. So we'll see you next episode. And thanks for watching.
Thanks.